Rebels. I've been looking forward to this interview for a few weeks now. In the last month, we've rolled out more than half a dozen new beers and cans in draft. That's including our Citrus Smoothie, Hazy IPA, Cerveza, and now Golden Crush. To put that in perspective, we're a young brewery. We're only in our 5th year and we're cranking out a prodigious amount of beer across the spectrum of style and flavors, ranging from sweet and savory, light and dark, and of course, big hop bombs and hazy hugs. A lot of work goes into the back end of each and every one of these beers. We're developing recipes, we're tasting, we're testing, and we're constantly doing research and iterating to get something spectacular into your hands. One of the most fun aspects of launching a new beer is developing the artwork. It seems obvious, but great artwork can really make or break the success of a beer. When consumers are confronted with a million different choices on the shelves, it's the one can that jumps off the shelf and into their hands. You know, they spent 3 seconds looking at it and they say, "Try me, I'm a really great tasting beer," and it's all just because of the art. That's why I'm so excited about today's guest. His name is Joel Hustak. He's a local Regina artist whose art and designs have appeared in projects that you might have heard of, including Star Wars, Game of Thrones, or even the new Atomic Victory Squad. But also more. He's also developing artwork for us at Rebellion. We just debuted Night Vapor at the Cask Festival, and I'm excited to announce that Joel is going to be developing art for the Night Viper beer coming out this fall. Joel, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
How's it going?
Pretty good, yeah, pretty good.
That was a long introduction, but...
It was great. It sounded awesome.
Let's start with beer, man. I'm really excited to show you and introduce you this new beer. Mm-hmm. This one's called Golden Crush, and it's a brand new recipe. We just debuted it like Friday.
Oh, wow.
2 days ago. Cheers.
Cheers. I'm digging the tropical design of the cover, or of the label, I should say, like the sort of message in a bottle kind of thing with the growler going on.
The palm tree and the
cool.
beach.
Yeah, I like that.
I think we wanted to evoke the feeling of like summer, just enjoying yourself.
Yeah, like a lazy afternoon kind of thing. Yeah, yeah. Nice.
Back in the day, Golden Crush was a session beer. So a session means lower in alcohol, so you can have a few and not get tipsy, fall down drunk. Mm-hmm. We just had trouble getting the ingredients to keep doing it the exact same recipe every single year. So we've reformulated the recipe, and we've actually taken our Hazy IPA and turned it into a session.
Oh, okay.
So this would be the session version of our Hazy IPA.
Oh, okay. This is a little bit, like, our session's a little bit lower usually. Like, this one's 4.5. This one's a little bit, like, it's a little bit in between, right?
Yeah.
Because your Hazy was quite stronger.
A little more boozy.
And then, because I'm used to, like, sometimes sessions being, like, really low. What do you call those? Like, the sort of 3%
yeah,
beers.
you're kind of
those
looking
ones,
in like 3 and 4%.
or like a table beer? Is that what they call those sometimes?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
I kind of learned a few things from my brothers, but I'm kind of not always on par with my terminology.
You're in the right zone.
Yeah.
It just means session just means a lighter beer.
Right. Yeah.
You can have, more than one.
Yeah, quite a few of and still feel fine. Yeah. Yeah. I didn't know if there was a certain range though. Do you have to be in, like, for percentage?
I'm sure there's like an official definition. I just don't remember off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I was told once upon a time, but
right,
I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah. No, that's awesome.
Forget. I like it. It's aromatic, especially compared to last year's. Mm-hmm. Super tropical. Lots of citrus on the nose.
Oh yeah, really hoppy.
But not bitter hoppy. More like citrusy hoppy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Fruity. Pretty damn fruity.
Nice. Yeah.
We're actually going to be relaunching the art for that can. We have a whole new label coming out that we're rolling out for our cans. We just learned a little bit about the templates. So we're going to keep the palm tree, all that main art that you see in the center will stay, but the rest of the can will be kind of adjusted a little bit and modified.
Right, like, so you're going to have the artwork on the front and the back sort of thing, like the mirrored kind of effect?
It'll be like a triptych style. I was showing you for the Night Viper artwork, but basically it'll have one information panel about the brewery, big panel for art, and then 4 words describing the flavor of the beer. So this one would be like hazy, fruity, juicy, delicious. I think that's what we're settled on.
Right. Cool. Yeah. Yeah, because this one is missing that sort of tagline with all the flavors. Yeah, that's right.
One of the things we realized is with the old labels is when you put the beer on the shelf, lots of retailers have a lip to the shelf, and the lip covers the name of the beer.
The bottom? Yeah.
You couldn't see the name if you tried. You just see Rebellion and be
Right.
like, oh, what's that?
So you're just moving it up like about an inch, sort of?
The names
name?
are shifting all the way to the top.
Oh, okay.
Rebellion shifting all the way to the bottom.
Oh, okay, cool.
And we wanted it so you could see the can from any angle and basically know what you were looking at instead of having to turn it 20 to 30 degrees just to get a full sense of it.
For sure.
Yeah. Would you recommend this beer to your friends?
I would, yeah. Yeah. No, I like it.
Oh, and it's really hazy. I forgot to mention.
Oh, yeah.
We're using the same yeast as we did for our hazy IPA, so it's not bright and clear anymore. It's got that like dank, hazy character.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's nice.
That doesn't affect the flavor at all. It's just like the yeast doing its thing.
Yeah. No, I don't mind a cloudy beer, yeah.
Back in the day, it used to mean the beer was infected and screwed up, but...
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of those things, I guess, become... those accidents become tradition, right? Like, that it becomes an acquired taste that they kind of like, right? Like, isn't that the kind of how sours started happening? Like, they kind of had the window open, and some of those natural yeasts kind of came in through the windows and kind of settled into it. That's what I heard. I don't know if that's a fact, though. I don't know.
Someone's going to correct me, and I'm probably wrong, but my understanding is from the very beginning of beer, all beer was sour.
Oh, okay.
It was just wild fermentation from yeast in the air because they didn't
Yeah.
understand germ theory.
Yeah.
So they would just leave the honey or whatever fermentable sugars in liquid out, and then the wild yeast from the air would just do its thing.
Oh, okay. Interesting, yeah. So I didn't realize that, like, the majority or every beer sort of had it. That's pretty interesting. Yeah.
Back in the day,
Back in the day, yeah.
Like sours as a
Not
style
controlled.
are maybe new to North America, new-ish, but in Europe they've been a thing for a really long time. Wild fermentation is, it's totally a thing.
Right.
Hundreds of years of tradition.
Is it Belgian? Yeah, right?
Belgium's
Belgian.
especially known for doing really great, like in the Flanders region.
Right.
But France also has their farmhouse styles.
Oh, okay.
You'll see like pictures of breweries where they actually will open up the slats in the windows and they'll have open vats, and they just know the breeze will carry in the wild yeast.
Right.
And they'll just have the air flow through the windows and just activate, do its thing.
That's interesting.
It doesn't take much though. Like there's yeast on everything. There's yeast on your hands right now.
Right.
It's just depending on what you get. I mean, you want to control. If you want to have a particular style of beer, you want to control what's fermenting.
For sure. And I wonder, having that sort of open air concept coming in like different locations in the world, with the different what plants are in season, in bloom or whatever, like how that affects that, if it does affect it,
Sure. Like we know there are regions that have vastly different beer profiles, and that's all from local features, whether it's water or yeast or hops. What you can grow in that region may affect the styles.
Absolutely.
Like if you didn't have access to a lot of hops, you'd probably have more malty styles back in the day, right? Like you look at Scotland, they had a really hard time getting hops, so a lot of their beers are really light, sweet, and malty. If you go to Pacific Northwest United States, Yakima Valley region, they're just drowning in hops, so they just murder their beers with hops.
Right.
Just boom.
Yeah. And I heard that back in the day they used to put it in a lot of like herbs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And kind of spices.
Yeah, there's like Gruit styles
Yeah.
and herbed beers. You might have had a chance to try the Heather beer
I did, yeah.
at the Cask Festival. That would be like an example.
I think I did at least. Maybe that was one of the ones I skipped out on, but yeah, like yeah.
Nokomis did
Had a
their
few.
Nordic farmhouse one.
Yeah,
Did
I
you
had
try
that one for sure. That was one of my favorites.
Yeah,
I like that one a lot, yeah.
with their quick yeast.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was pretty funky, that one.
It's too weird for me, but I know a lot of people really like it.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know Multinational won the whole thing?
Oh, did they?
Yeah,
Wow,
they
the
got
gin and
popular
juice.
vote. Gin and juice.
Yeah, nice. That was an interesting one. Like you definitely could taste what they were going for. Like so, it makes sense that they would win. Like it wasn't my favorite, but I still enjoyed it, and I could sense what they were going for, like right off the bat. It wasn't too much of a leap. to call it a gin juice.
Was your number one the Nordic Farmhouse one from Nokomis?
I think so, yeah. I think that was my number one. Yeah, I really liked the Pile of Bones one as well. That was interesting.
They're sour.
Yeah. And the Night Viper was nice too. Like the level of spice was interesting. Like it wasn't too much, but it was still noticeable, and you could get a feel of it. It was kind of like eating a rich chocolate bar too. Like I kind of felt like it was pretty intense like that. Yeah.
I didn't get to have it because lactose just kills me.
Absolutely.
I was actually talking to Dave this morning about it, and what inspired him was going to Mexico and going to get a Aztec hot chocolate, where I guess how it works is they serve you a cup of warm milk, then you add cocoa powder in to taste, like Mexican cocoa powder, and they give you chili powder and cinnamon, nutmeg, and you just add it as you like. So you can have as hot or sweet as you want.
Oh, that's cool.
And that's what inspired him to create the Night Viper beer.
Well, I definitely get a sense for that. Like it definitely like tastes like chocolate milk or hot chocolate kind of thing. Like it has that rich, kind of full-bodied kind of taste to me. Yeah.
That lactose would give it a really creamy, rich character.
Yeah.
I'm jealous I can't have it. I mean, I could have it. I just pay for it later.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll have to try it sometime.
Be like, just
plan ahead
suffering.
of time, yeah. Take the next day off of work.
So tell me about your work as an artist. How'd you get started?
For sure. Well, going back as the cliche sort of goes, like I've been drawing like as a hobby since I was a little kid, just for fun, like coming up with monsters, creatures, drawing my favorite comic book characters or movie characters, or just trying to come up with original stuff. And then kind of in high school, like I was still drawing, but I wasn't taking it as seriously. Like I wasn't really taking it seriously before. It was all a hobby. But then I found this website called conceptart.org, which was around 2005 when there was sort of a boom on that website, and a lot of people were finding it, and there was a bunch of professionals that worked in the games and film industry, and they were all like all the professionals were posting tutorials, they were commenting on beginners' work, and it was sort of just this thriving community. And so I think I was coming back from like a ski trip, and we could either write about, like do an essay about the trip or do a drawing of the trip. So I chose to do a drawing, and then I, for some reason, was like, I'm going to try posting online, trying to find a forum. And I stumbled across this one eventually, and it was I just fell in love with it. And then there's a bunch of people that were doing daily sketchbook threads. So they would always post in their own thread showing their daily progress. And that inspired me to sort of do a daily sketchbook at that point. And it just kind of snowballed from there. I saw all these sort of rock stars of the industry doing all this amazing work, like stuff I've never seen before. Like I've seen a lot of that high-end fantasy stuff, growing up, but you never really thought of it as like a profession, something that you could attain. But these guys were doing it, and you could see their process as they were, getting better and stuff like that. So that kind of started it all off, and then just kind of kept doing it, and then exploring different avenues, and went to college eventually, Sheridan College, and studied illustration there.
What was your main focus? Just illustration, or were you doing tons of different pieces?
We did tons of different pieces. There was two streams. There was technical and there was interpretive. So I went into interpretive, and that pretty much was, I guess, like storybook type stuff. It could be a lot of different things. Like it's storybooks, it's sort of like the editorial artwork that you would see in like newspapers, magazines, things like that. Yeah. And so that wasn't my focus. Like even within interpretive, I went more of like the sort of illustration for fantasy and stuff like that, and storybooks and stuff. So, and that's when I started. Like I initially wanted to go down the video game concept art realm to design characters and creatures and stuff like that. But eventually, I kind of went more down the finished painting route, because when you're a designer, you're doing more of a cog in the wheel, designing something for somebody else to take to the final product. But I liked being more of a painter and actually finishing the painting and showing off the painting, right? So that was more of what you could do with illustration. Illustration was the final product, I felt like. So I, instead of going down concept art, I more shifted towards fantasy science fiction illustration.
And then when you look at your Instagram account, it's like tons of monsters, a couple of vampires, lots of zombies, stuff that really kind of grabbed my attention when Chad told me to check out your artwork.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was before, well, let's back it up. How I found out about you was through Chad Boudreau. He had come on the podcast previously, and then he said, hey, one of the guys I work with, he's an artist, he does great stuff, you should check him out on Instagram. He's launching this brand new book, Droidography, the Star Wars book. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
For sure. So I guess I'll go back a little bit. So I started working for a game company called Fantasy Flight Games, where we do card designs. So I do illustrations for Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones. And over those 6 years I was working for this card game company, I built up repertoire of sort of a Google footprint of Star Wars images. So I think the droidography company, Insight Editions, they found my work and they were inspired. They wanted my style. And so they hired me to do the whole book based on my style. And
some guy just Googled you online?
I believe so. I didn't really get the full story, but yeah, they found me somehow. So I think I have a pretty big Google footprint in terms of Star Wars stuff, I guess. And a lot of Wikipedia things have my artwork as the main sort of reference for a lot of things. Not by my choice, but by my I didn't put it up there, but somebody finds the artwork and they sort of link it up. So it gets spread around quite fast.
Wikipedia is like the Wikipedia for all StarCraft knowledge.
Yeah, Star Wars. Yeah.
So fans would just see your art and say, "Hey, this is totally cool. I'm putting it in this entry."
Absolutely, and so it gets a lot of sort of mileage, I guess, from that. Yeah. And it always gets me excited when I see them choose it as sort of the main image for the character. Sometimes the characters haven't been portrayed in the way that I've portrayed them. I always try to give a unique perspective. And that's what we were hired for too for the card games. Was don't just take a movie still and recreate that. Show it from a different angle. So that was always challenging, but also rewarding too, because you're creating unique art. So yeah.
So what would you describe your kind of art style as?
Well, I like doing, I guess, moody, dark things. I like to paint a lot of creatures and monsters and horror, science fiction type stuff. And so I would describe that as my main influence. So I'm always trying to do creepy things, but also I like to do stuff with duality, I guess. So there's some good, there's some evil and things like that. And I guess technically I would describe it as very I like to give a traditional vibe even if I'm doing digital art. I like to make it look very painterly and handmade and stuff like that. I like the tactile feel of artwork.
It feels textured and not
even
just
even if
flat.
it's digital, yeah. And
That's cool.
And I like to create art with an impact, something that really catches your eye and sort of wants you to look deeper into and find different things in the artwork.
So when we came to you to talk to you about doing the Night Viper artwork, what were you thinking?
So initially, I started off my sketches just trying to play off the themes of the name and the type of beer. And so I started off with a night scene, and I kind of experimented with that, and just I won't maybe spoil some of the lost sketches in case we use them for a future label, but eventually we settled on the sort of UFO effect, which I was really stoked on because I hadn't illustrated UFO in the past. For Fantasy Flight Games, they hired me to do an alien invasion illustration, and they gave me the tsunami illustrations, not the actual aliens. So I hadn't actually got to cross that off my checklist, but with this Rebellion one, I was able to do that, so that's awesome.
And then you got to taste the beer at the Cask Fest, which is pretty sweet.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
So do you have a favorite story from all your time working? A favorite piece of artwork that you like to talk about?
Yeah, it's usually the ones that my milestone pieces are the personal pieces that sort of I've learned something from and sort of pushed me over the top, pushed me to the next level. And one of the recent ones, I guess it's about maybe 3 years old now, but is my necromancer summoning this worm out of a swamp. And it was part of this illustration masterclass that I go to every summer. A lot of the top industry folks in like the fantasy, science fiction, illustration world, they're the instructors, and they sort of work beside you and also critique you, and just kind of develop pieces with you. And then also all the students, there's about 90 students that are like all just, top level peers, right? So whenever I'm in that environment, I usually create one of my best pieces, but it's also very like, it's like there's highs and lows because I'm around all these amazing people, and it's very, like it uplifts you, but then you're also like, it kind of brings you down. Like there's tons of ups and downs because you're pushing so hard and trying to get to that next level. And so of course it's going to be a little difficult, right? But it's always rewarding. It always feels good in the end, sort of thing. So I think that worm piece is probably one of my favorites. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you know what they say, when you're not around people who are in that kind of zone, it's hard to soar like an eagle when you're surrounded by turkeys.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So what's next for you? What next big projects can we look forward to?
So I have a few different worlds that I sort of want to kick off and sort of illustrate and start designing a lot more of my own characters, and maybe convert those into some graphic novels and stuff like that. And I want to get more mileage with comics. Like I haven't really made a comic before. I've sort of worked on a few comic projects, but I want to go deeper in that and actually kind of make something of my own, maybe team up with some other writers and kind of
That's deadly, man.
create something of my own brand, basically. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, you heard it here first. Joel's going to be making comic books. And then you can be able to find them at like comic readers, comic book stores all across the country.
Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully. I mean, at first I'll start off indie for sure, like, and it'll be at comic readers, but yeah, like then you got to get in with the publishers, I guess, to be across the world. But that's always the dream, right?
I think you can do it. I think your art's really rad. I mean, you already got Star Wars under your belt, you got Game of Thrones. Like, that's nothing to sneeze at.
For sure, absolutely.
I don't know anyone else who's doing Game of Thrones.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's been fun, especially watching the last season of Game of Thrones, seeing like, no spoilers, but some of the characters that I've helped with, seeing their story, how it develops and stuff like that. It's been really inspiring.
Didn't you draw Beric Dondarrion?
Yeah.
Like with the flaming sword?
I did, yeah.
I seem to remember that one.
Yeah, and actually that was when I mentioned sort of that illustration masterclass. One of the students there modeled for that piece, actually, because we sort of have a photographing session where we photograph people for our piece that we're working on there. But then you might as well, if you have other projects, you might as well get some other shots because people bring like swords and armor. And so I had a buddy there that helped me out with that piece too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Joel, I want to thank you for your time today.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
I'm going to include links to all your art so people can find you on Instagram and check out all the cool stuff you're doing.
For sure. Thank you.
Rebels, I want to thank you for tuning in this week. If you want to find the latest news about Rebellion Brewing, be sure to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Untapped. And as always, thank you for joining the Rebellion.